Welcome back to Big Red Rant. This week, the Huskers are looking to become 6-1. They're going to be wearing their all whites in Minnesota versus the Golden Gophers, who have won 2 of their last 3 games. 3 weeks ago, they beat Rutgers 31-28. Then last week, they beat Purdue in a game where they were down the majority of the game, ended up coming back and won by 7, 27-20. Gary, I am finding myself unable to look past this Minnesota team. PJ Fleck has always had Nebraska's number. I think he's a really great coach. I think for whatever reason they play Nebraska as tough as they play anyone. Maybe it's a little football PTSD. I do think that Nebraska ultimately wins this game, but it wouldn't surprise me if it's similar to the Maryland game in ways. Perhaps not as high scoring or even as close of a score. I just don't think it's going to be easy.
Yeah, I think the entire fan base has a lot of PTSD. Like what you're saying is a common thing I've heard. The hate for the portion of the fan base towards Raiola, the hate of the portion of the fan base towards Rule is like when you hear people talk about it, they include this Rule era with Scott Frost and Mike Riley and things like that as far back as it goes. So to like your point, Rule's 0-1 against PJ Fleck in Minnesota since he's been here. And Raiola has never played him. Barney's never played him. So I mean, most of the guys on this current roster are this is the first time they're playing them. And you can tell these last weeks, they're not the clean blowout games that people want, but these teams look nothing like even last year, but especially before Nebraska teams where bad mistakes that would cost better teams the game. Nebraska's bouncing back from not losing composure and poise and just staying calm, staying in the moment and finding ways to get these wins. And also on the other side, this Minnesota team doesn't look like a typical PJ Fleck team. They're not very good at all running the ball. That's usually a staple for them. But the things that are similar is they play pretty mistake-free football and they play pretty good defense. So I'm with you like on the result, like what I think the outcome will be. I think that the spread's too high. What is it, 7.5, something like that. I just feel like the identity, oddly enough, we've been a team without an identity for so long. I feel like the identity of this team is be in the fight at the end of the game and then has all the confidence in the world in themselves to finish, whether they finish on offense or finish on defense. We've seen it from the Cincinnati game, finishing on defense. They had to make a stop last week to keep Maryland from scoring, but what the offense did on its final drive made it easier because you're forcing them to go try to get tighter down. You know what I mean? It wasn't like an overtime game, things like that. So it's just, I feel very confident going into this game. I think style is going to be a big factor in not a lot of points being scored and it being a relatively close game. Nebraska has not shown that they're going to play really clean, crisp football. So if you're going to make even half of the mistakes against Minnesota you made against Maryland, Minnesota's not going to turn around and give you 3 personal foul penalties and have the quarterback run out of bounds 3 yards short of the first down when all you had to do was cut in, extend a drive. You're not going to rattle their quarterback as easy as you could the freshman last week. I think overall he's a better quarterback. He's just really young. It's obviously a statement game for Emmett. I don't know how much that affects Holgerson's play calling. If he's going to purposely force feed Emmett the ball, even knowing that they're probably going to really be focused on it. I think they're giving up like 108 yards on the ground and like a buck 80, somewhere around there on in the air. I think Nebraska will surpass both of those numbers, both of their averages, but I don't think you're going to see a ton of the big plays like you saw last week where Emmett had a 50-yard run. Hunter had that giant tunnel screen that went for a touchdown. I do have confidence that Nebraska's continually getting better. And there's some people don't want to hear that. That couldn't be farther from the truth. But the reality is, and the beauty is you can go look and say, hey, when Nebraska gave up 3 interceptions and 1 for a direct touchdown in the past, with or without Matt Rule, did they bounce back from that and win the game? No. Did they used to blow out the little schools like they were supposed to? The answer is no. Did they beat the teams in the Big Ten that on paper they should clearly beat all the time without it? No, like none of those things. So now that we're at a point where they're winning ugly and they're having to fight and keep composure and show some poise, and they're winning. We haven't seen that before, but it's not the optics we want, right? And I get that from a certain standpoint, but I'm waiting to see if it's going to happen this year or if we need to wait till next year where that does start happening. This does seem like the team or the matchup that Nebraska could have a breakout, stop turning the ball over at inopportune times. They've done that the last couple of games. Stop allowing big plays that gouge you and make the scoreboard look different than what it should be. Go back to the Michigan game. Michigan didn't grind the ball down our throats and extend drives. They scored 3 touchdowns on 3 huge explosive plays. But other than that, like, overall, they fared pretty well against a team that on paper and everywhere else is supposed to be quite a bit better than them. So the improvements there, it's just some of the steps haven't been made yet to get to the point where people relax or go from super negative and nothing's better and rule sucks and Raiola's got to go. He's not the answer. Give us Latif, to where in a week or two they're going to flip and go, Nebraska's in the playoff. If they get held out, it's bullshit. Like, there'll be a switch at some point. I hope it's this season. But like I said, this is one of those games that I think could kind of tilt some opinions in the other direction, because it's not a good matchup for Minnesota when you can't run the ball against almost anybody. I think they had 30 yards total rushing last week, and that's one thing that has hurt Nebraska. Nebraska's gradually been getting better. You could argue it's because the opponents aren't quite as good as they were, or the way I look at it, you improve from week to week. Like, that's the goal. It seems that they're gradually doing that. But that's one big weakness of Nebraska's that everybody knows about, that I don't know that they can really exploit it if they want to. So this could be a game where it's kind of a coming out where Nebraska goes big on them and does some work. But the short week from last week to this week, from all the way East Coast to having to jump back in a plane and travel again, Emmett had so many yards and a lot of carries. I don't know what kind of shape he's going to be in, or what percentage his body's going to be at in the third and fourth quarters. Third quarter's been an issue for us. And PJ Fleck's going to know that. They're not going to make a lot of mistakes. He's going to try to game plan best he can for our weaknesses to protect their weaknesses, knowing that we're going to attack those. And you heard even Holgerson talking about it, some of the things they did. And he's like, and I'm sure Minnesota won't be ready to stop that at all. It's like, that's another thing people have to factor in, is, and myself included, is like, when certain things aren't happening, it's like, God, dude, this works so well this game. Yeah, teams prepare just like we should be preparing for them. So
Yeah, they're going to be ready for that Isaiah Hunter tunnel screen, unfortunately. We are midway through the college football season, and Gary and I have been racking up money using Profit X. It's America's #1 sports prediction market, where you too can win real money predicting sports outcomes in 40 plus states. And yes, that includes Nebraska. We use it because you get better odds than traditional sports books, because you're not playing against the house. You're playing against actual other people. Also, you can request your own odds, play with confidence, and get super quick payouts straight to your bank, card, or even crypto. Sign up at profitx.co or download the app and use the promo code RANT, and you'll get up to $200 in ProfitX cash on all your plays for the first 30 days. Sign up now and start winning real money predicting sports.
yeah, I think they'll be ready for that. I think they'll be ready for some of the setups where they try to get the isolation, the one-on-ones, the Dane Key type touchdown pass. But there's times where you can see the guy in motion kind of comes off and you try to get isolation with where you got a one-on-one situation. Obviously, be ready for that. They have really good defensive backs. So Nebraska's strength being the passing game, I think it's going to be a little tougher. But I think especially the charge and the excitement, or whatever the right word is, that Emmett should have going into this game, if you can start moving the ball on them on the ground fairly early, then they really could blow it open. If and when they have to sell out to stop the run, if we can get it going early, Rel is for sure going to tear that apart in the pass game. So I'm with you though. I think the intangibles that PJ Fleck instills in his team is going to be a noticeable difference from a team like Maryland, who was more athletic, faster, on paper for sure better, but not nearly as disciplined, not as sound in a lot of areas, or disciplined in a lot of areas. Like, we complain about the missed tackles. They had more missed tackles than we did. So, I mean, you're not going to have as sloppy of a team, but you're not going to have as athletic of a team either. So I just think until Nebraska shows they can stop getting in their own way and making some of these games close, I'm expecting like you. I think Nebraska tries to keep it on the ground, runs a lot of clock out. When they do pass, it's not going to be anything deep or attacking too hard because of those guys in the secondary. Be shorter. If they can't run the ball, and our strength is the one thing they want to do in throwing the ball, I don't see them scoring a ton. I think it could be a kind of a grindier. And I thought the same thing in the Maryland game, but I think I kind of have the same stance for this game going in that I had going into Maryland.
Hopefully, this doesn't jinx anything, but for the record, you and I are perfect on the year, which isn't saying much. I feel like the schedule's been pretty easy to predict, but we haven't picked a game wrong yet. And I know both of us have Nebraska winning this game. But tell us what you guys think in the comments. Who wins this game? Why? And leave us a score prediction. We'll see you guys for the live stream Friday night. Till then, go Big Red.